So when I talk about the Eldrazi metagame, I think about it as being very reminiscent of full-powered Affinity, and one of the factors is that the other deck is just Affinity.
Sure.
That's very amusing to me. Something interesting about Austin's list, he has 4 Galvanic Blasts and 2 copies of Dispatch, which you don't usually see.
All right, so his opponent Austin Holcomb versus Hoogland. Hoogland wins the die roll and starts with turn 1 Birds of Paradise. One of the strengths of Kiki Horde here is when decks are not playing cheap removal. A turn 1 Birds of Paradise is among the most powerful things you can do in any format. And you know, we've been seeing Jeff on camera a lot with turn 1 Birds of Paradise nearly every game, and no one's kill spelling it. You know, where in Modern has previously been a lightning bolt format, I just don't see anyone bolting the bird.
Right. We saw Jerry Thompson take 7 damage to dismember a bird, which really shows you how powerful it is. Unfortunately for Jerry, Jeff just played 2 more.
So Hoogland has a turn 2 Voice of Resurgence, and he will need it against the army that Holcomb deployed on turn 1. A Ornithopter, a Mem Knight, and a Vault Scourge all hit the table along with Springleaf Drum.
A lot of bodies hanging out. Holcomb's going to be looking for some kind of Punisher here. He wants one of his big impact cards.
We'll see if Holcomb can get some damage in. Looks like it will be Vault Scourge swinging in for 1 damage. Holcomb does have a copy of Galvanic Blast in hand. With colored mana, I actually think it's interesting. If he had that last turn, he could have bolted the bird. Instead, he went her Vault Scourge, and he's actually going to Galvanic Blast away the Voice of Resurgence instead of the Birds of Paradise.
Considering that Austin's not trying to play a game on Jeff's turn at all, you know, he's really not going to be casting mini instants. Doesn't have to do them on Jeff's turn. I don't understand tagging the Voice here, and in fact, I would have really liked to kill the Birds of Paradise to stunt Jeff's mana. Yeah,
I mean, Jeff didn't actually use the bonus mana off Birds of Paradise last turn. He just tapped 2 lands. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if your opponent has access to 3 mana and only uses 2, the odds are very high that they're looking for 4 the next turn.
And we see Pia and Kieran Nalaar made turn 3 by Jeff thanks to that Birds of Paradise left around. This card has historically been very good against Affinity.
Yeah, this is one of the matchups where it really shines, and you know, either having used the Galvanic Blast on the birds to delay this a turn, or even having the blast to get rid of the Pia and Kieran so that he can't just throw Thopters at any of your creatures that matter. I would have liked that usage a lot better.
Well, now it's going to be up to Holcomb to get past those Thopter tokens. See a 3rd land from him. A Cranial Plating is in hand along with 1 more land. But we'll see if he can get these flyers past Pia and Kieran.
Yeah, plating is pretty impactful, but Pia and Kieran just has really good blockers, or even the ability to just throw the Thopters at any of the creatures that Austin controls.
Yeah, plating goes on to Ornithopter. It'll swing in. Jeff gives a count to the artifacts in play. Sees there are 6 of them, so this is a 6 damage Ornithopter. Jeff may just take the hit here. See Path to Exile hanging out in his hand. If he takes the hit here, I'm not positive Austin ever can connect again with damage once Jeff untaps.
Right, Jeff has the option to double block here, or even just chump block, but if he just waits a turn, he can cleanly answer the Ornithopter and then just have fuel in the tank for any of Austin's other threats.
So Jeff goes to 10. He untaps, swings with that elemental token. It's now a 5/5, and Austin is already chump blocking. Mem Knight hits the bin.
Something I didn't talk about is just how good Pia and Kieran is with that elemental token.
Yeah, it's a 3 bumps for it.
Yeah.
A 2nd Blinkmoth Nexus is the play for Holcomb. 1 card remains in hand. He's going to swing with Ornithopter. She goes back in the tank on it. I believe he has 1 more creature in hand. Trying to debate whether or not he wants to cast it before swinging. I'm not certain it's going to matter. I think he's going to get shot down no matter which way he goes.
Yeah, he has to really be banking on Jeff having only lands in his hand and drawing only lands for the rest of the game to really be into it. Alternatively, just peeling Galvanic Blast to kill Jeff outside of combat, but the combat step is very much locked up by Jeff's position here.
So as Ornithopter swings, Jeff blocks with a Thopter and then uses the mana to shoot the Thopter at the Ornithopter. So a trade, Jeff stays at 10. And as a follow-up Vault Scourge for Holcomb.
Not the card that Austin needed there.
Swing by Jeff. It'll be that elemental token again, down to a 4/4 because of the Thopter that Jeff gave away.
So on the one end, the Vault Scourge does have lifelink, so it may look like it is effective at getting back into this game, but Jeff is fully capable of dealing with both Vault Scourges outside of combat.
He has Path to Exile in hand, and he has one more Thopter token left.
Right.
Austin, though, has a lot of flyers. He's going to activate a Blinkmoth Nexus. That and 2 Vault Scourges makes for 3 flyers.
If Jeff sacrifices the Thopter, he is putting himself in a position where the Elemental token's down to a 3/3, and there is some pressure on Jeff to actually have some kind of follow-up.
We have noticed, actually, that with Jeff's Kiki Cord deck, he's great at answering things, but his clock can be relatively slow in these games.
Absolutely.
Austin did him a big help by shooting that Voice of Resurgence, actually.
Yeah.
The swing is the Nexus and both Vault Scourges. One of the Vault Scourges picks up Cranial Plating. And Thopter will go in front of one of the 2 Vault Scourges, and then Tian Kiran will throw it at the other Vault Scourge.
Yeah, that's a great play there. You block one of the life-flicking creatures, sacrifice the creature blocking it to kill the other before combat. Austin will not gain any life off of this attack.
Jeff takes 1 off the Blinkmoth Nexus, goes to 9.
What Jeff really wants here is a Restoration Angel or a Chord of Calling.
He'll swing with Pia and Kiran and the Elemental. That's a swing for 5. Austin will go to 3. We pass back. Jeff has at least 1 Path to Exile in hand, maybe 2. But if you look at Austin's hand, he has a pair of Galvanic Blasts here. Jeff being at 9, Austin might be able to steal this game. Now he's choked on red mana.
That might be what this comes down to.
He'll activate Blinkmoth Nexus. Just needs to get 1 damage in to make these 2 Galvanic Blasts lethal. Now, he can't cast them both in 1 turn, so Cranial Plating will go onto Vault Scourge.
He has to find a way to get a damage in as a sure thing, as well as cast Galvanic Blast over the course of 2 turns.
Yeah. Path to Exile will hit Vault Scourge.
Yeah. We knew just from that 1 path that connecting with 1 creature was not a likely outcome.
If Jeff has a second path, it's going to be no good here. Austin looks like he's going to take an opportunity to cast Galvanic Blast then on the Elemental token.
I think that line is making Austin's outs even more slim.
Loses the Vault Scourge, gets a land. He doesn't have Lethal Burn anymore, but he does get to survive for another turn. Jeff only has 2 power in play. Unless he draws Kasali Pridemage. That's the draw. Exalted will put Pia and Kiran up to 3, which
looks lethal
to me. Yeah, Austin's at exactly 3, and that will be game 1 over for Jeff Hoogland.
Yeah, so Jeff's hand was not very robust as the game progressed. He did need a top deck there, so that Pridemage was actually a very significant draw step.
Looking over to the sideboards, we'll look at Austin Holcomb first. He's now down a game. Spellskites, Ensnaring Bridges, Thoughtseize. One I really like here, Gearpoor Aether Grid and a Whip Flare. Both look great. Ancient Grudge, Dismember, Torpor Orb, and Chalice of the Void.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a bunch of removal spells. The Whip Flare is kind of that Plague Wind, one-sided Pyroclasm, Dismember to deal with some of Jeff's creatures. We did see Austin aggressively using Galvanic Blast as a removal spell, so more of that kind of effect makes sense. Torpor Orb is also a consideration. Jeff's deck hinges heavily on a lot of enter the battlefield abilities. Seeing as Splinter Twin is no longer legal, this is probably the exact kind of matchup that Austin has Torpor Orb in his sideboard for.
All right, on Jeff's side, he has a slew of one-ofs in his sideboard. But as you expect, a core deck will have a lot of good things in the sideboard to board in against something like Affinity.
Absolutely. So we have Reclamation Sage and Phyrexian Revoker as probably the 2 kind of Chord of Calling bullets that we're looking for. Revoker able to shut down Arcbound Ravager, Cranial Plating, that sort of thing. And then Jeff has 2 copies of Stony Silence. He's banking on drawing them naturally, but they sure are important in this matchup.
They're among, it may be the single best card against an Affinity deck in the format.
Right. It has the best impact in your opening hand. Arguably, as a top deck, it's worse than Ancient Grudge, but it has the highest ceiling.
Yeah. So you're talking earlier about Season 1 of the SCG Open Series and how we have 3 events left. Next week's event in Philly, we have a special promotion for that, and that's a partnership with the Philadelphia 76ers. If you are making it to the tournament, maybe you want to come into town for the game on Friday night, there's a special deal we have with the Sixers-Washington Wizards game. Learn more about that and get discounted tickets at ScGLOU.im/NBA and enter that using the promo code SCGPhilly.
Yeah, really cool promotion. I'd be excited about it. I won't personally be in Philly, but certainly this is great for people if you were planning on going to the game anyway, and maybe he'll be getting into Philly early. Go check it out.
So game 2, Holcomb will be back on the play. Now one thing, so Holcomb that game opted turn 1. He had the choice to play a Vault Scourge versus shooting a Birds of Paradise. And it may be one of those things, if you haven't played back when Birds of Paradise was a standard card, but frequently it seems to me like it's the right play to always kill Birds of Paradise on turn 1.
So there are a few kind of phrases that have existed in the game of Magic for a very long time. Many of them players struggle to even remember the origins, but they're just accepted as true. One of them is that there's no bad answers. There's no bad threats, only bad answers. Another one of them is bolt the bird.
Yeah.
If your opponent has fast mana and you can interact with it, you probably should.
Yeah, I mean, the ability to have an extra land in play for the entire game, which is kind of what you're proposing when you play Birds of Paradise. Not just an extra land, but a 5-color land, is very powerful. I mean, that ability to have a land that makes 2, that's what's making Eldrazi so good in this metagame right now. So, yes, Kiki Court has to pay a card for it and play Birds of Paradise, but you can interact with it, and you probably just should.
And then Austin also had a chance to reevaluate on turn 2 when Jeff had Birds of Paradise but cast a 2-mana spell on turn 2 and then just jumped right to 4 on turn 3. The Galvanic Blast was an option on his second turn as well.
So Hoogland trying to move to 11-1. He has top-8 our last 2 Modern Opens. Up a game here. It's looking like he may be able to make that 3 in a row. Currently first place in the standings.
Yeah, Kiki Court's probably the best deck in Modern. We don't see Jeff lose a lot with it.
Not this weekend. I don't believe we've seen him drop a game.
Yeah, it is wild how much success that he sees, but I don't know if anybody else actually plays his deck.
People try to, but there have not been a lot of successes with it.
To be fair, there are a lot of complicated lines. Some of the turns that Jeff takes, there's a lot of interesting decisions with both Court of Calling math and what to tutor for.
Both players going to 6 here. Jeff Hoogland really made a name for himself with Kiki Court. The 25-year-old from Bloomington, Illinois, 12 open top 8, still looking for that first open win. But he certainly has been on a roll. He's the number 1 in the standings, looking to get his invite back to the Players' Championship in 2016. Master's degree in mathematics, and he spends a lot of time focusing on open source Linux projects as a programmer in his spare time.
Yeah, and you mentioned he's still searching for that first Open Series win. It'd be a great story and a great experience for Jeff to have that win be during Eldrazi Winter with a non-Eldrazi deck.
Yeah, I mean, he even said it himself that he knows he believes he is not playing the best deck for this event, but at a certain point, if you're going to drive out to an Open every weekend and compete on the tour, you can't just always play the best deck. You have to be enjoying yourself while you do it. He said he just couldn't really do that while playing Eldrazi.
Yeah, he definitely values playing the deck that he wants to play. That's something that I believe biased Eric Hawkins' deck selection this weekend as well. He wasn't interested in playing the Eldrazi deck, and he found that in his testing it made him less capable of piloting it at the highest level.
There certainly can be that. I'll find if there's an archetype or a strategy I frequently am not interested by, I'm much more inclined to want to beat it than play it. Now, there's a certain threshold, I suppose, that where winning, a desire for winning will take over, and I'll say, well, if this deck is just as if it's too good, I may just have to play it anyway. But
in a world as interesting as ours, in a game as interesting in Magic, you're probably doing something wrong if you find yourself bored.
Both players have kept on 6 here. We see them resolve scries. And with that underway, we will start with Austin. It's turn 1, Mox Opal, Ornithopter, Land, Memnite, 0/0/0/0, and a 2. It's Spellskite to join them. A lot of creatures, only 1 power on the board, but
5 permanents, 1 power, 1 infect creature land.
We'll see if all it takes is 1 cranial plating to really make this one work. But that's not going to happen for Austin. He will swing with Memnite and Inkmoth Nexus, dealing a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B to Jeff.
This looks like a lot of my Scars of Mirrodin draft decks.
Just lots of Metalcraft that doesn't go anywhere.
Right. And infect creatures that don't combine with my other creatures.
For Jeff, not having his turn 1 Birds of Paradise this game. Not punished too hard for it, though. He'll start on, looks to be Wall of Roots or Omens. We'll see. It'll be Omens. He'll draw a card. Hits land 3, so he'll just develop his mana base naturally. For Austin, he's looking for that payoff card and not finding. Draw this turn was Mox Opal.
Yeah, the second Mox Opal is usually only good, A, if you can do anything with the mana, B, if you have an Arcbound Ravager. Neither of those are true for Austin.
Plays a second Inkmoth Nexus, activates, swings in. Jeff goes to 2 poison.
We see the Tom Ross poison counter in the top of the screen there. Of course, designed after winning his, that was his first invitational win?
Yes.
The second was the Vampire.
It was the invitational he actually won with Boss Sly. He won his next one with Infect using his poison counter.
That's style.
For Jeff, turn 3 is Wall of Roots and Voice of Resurgence. Looks like it's going to be a Dismember from Austin on the Wall of Roots. Dismember, a card that has really seen a large uptick in its play to combat those Eldrazi.
Yeah, also just in the Eldrazi deck. It's a card that as soon as it was spoiled, people knew was inherently powerful. And when you look back at the actual Caw-Blade era of Standard, there's a lot of cards that were mistakes. I think that Dismember gets glossed over as one of those very powerful cards.
So last turn, Austin swung 2 Inkmoth Nexus, bringing Jeff Hoogland up to 4 poison. Jeff playing a 4th land and passing the turn. Now, if you're in Holcomb's position, that is a suspicious line indeed to swing your flyers into.
Yeah, I don't believe he has nothing.
Swings both. There is a Galvanic Blast in Austin's hand, but he does not have the mana to hold it up. And not maximum punishment. The worst thing that could happen here was that Jeff would flash a Restoration Angel into play.
Yeah, Dismember is actually the second least good card Jeff could have played here. Path to Exile would have been worse for Jeff, but he could have had Restoration Angel or Court of Calling for any 3-drop.
Tries to dismember the Inkmoth Nexus. Austin redirects to Spellskite, and Jeff's at 6 poison.
So this is actually looking quite a bit better than my Scars of Mirrodin draft decks.
Well, Jeff's up to 5 lands and 2 creatures. He has a Court of Calling in hand. So we may still see a Restoration Angel on the way.
Yeah, be able to blink the Wall of Omens and draw another card with that line as well.
So, and here's what I think may be a misstep on Austin's side. He activated both creatures and swung. Now he has a second Mox Opal. If he had played it to Legend Rule the first Mox Opal, he would have Galvanic Blast mana up, and he would be able to Galvanic Blast the Restoration Angel that's about to happen.
Yep, absolutely right. That would have been huge. It would have put Jeff up to 8 poison, saved himself an Inkmoth Nexus.
And now with 1 Inkmoth Nexus in the graveyard, you feel like we're not sure that Austin can cross this finish line.
Yeah, he's
got Jeff to 7.
Yep. And now we might have to get ourselves on regular damage,
which he hasn't made many inroads on. Jeff is still just at 15. And you see post-combat, Austin is going to still Galvanic Blast the Restoration Angel.
Yeah, his line is still to try to connect with that Inkmoth Nexus 3 more times, though it's looking a lot...
It's going to be a lot harder.
It was looking hard. Now it's looking impossible. That PN Kieran Nalaar is extremely good for Jeff here.
PN Kieran great at locking down the air. It may not have mattered which route Austin took if that was the draw for Hoogland. So Austin's going to have to change gears. Jeff is at 12. He had to take 3 damage to cast that PN Kieran Nalaar. And Austin can switch gears. Here's Etched Champion. A card we don't see too much of in Eldrazi Winter, but it's great against Collected Company decks.
Absolutely. So the ability to sacrifice an artifact and do 2 damage to a creature on PN Kieran Nalaar does count as a red source dealing damage. So Jeff won't be able to shoot the Etched Champion with the Pia, but he can double block it with the Thopters.
So that is one way. So if Austin draws a Cranial Plating, Jeff does have a way to interact.
Right. We're also in the territory, both players are at 12. Jeff might have a line just to race the Etched Champion. There's no Cranial Plating, there's no Arcbound Ravager.
You see Spellskite the play for Jeff. That's another card that can block Etched Champion.
That's actually probably better than throwing away your Thopters. That's pretty big for Jeff.
Jeff was going to swing a Thopter and decides to leave them back for the possible double block.
The Spellskite also has play against any potential future Arcbound Ravagers, as you can force the modular trigger to target the Spellskite if it comes to that.
Play is a Torpor Orb from Austin Holcomb. late to the party here. Would have loved to have one of those when Pia and Kieran Nalaar was made.
Right. I was discussing the tension between. So this is actually the card I was just going to talk about. Stony Silence on turn 2 is much better than Stony Silence late in the game, and Torpor Orb has that same effect. It doesn't do anything once the enter the battlefield triggers have already occurred.
See Jeff drawing that Stony Silence, and now locking Austin out of the game. He can't connect on the board, and many of his top decks don't work through Stony Silence.
Yes, Jeff's still playing it safe. He's not looking to get aggressive just here. Reasonably, he could probably start trying to get some damage in with the Pia and Kieran, but he's taking his time. He knows he's going to win this long game.
So players will trade draw steps. Jeff patient to do so. You see, he's picked up Eternal Witness and Orzhov Pontiff in his hand, opting to play neither. I mean, the Witness doesn't do much under Torpor Orb anymore. I suppose Pontiff won't the first time. It can still, with the Haunt trigger, I believe, still works.
Right. And even with that Haunt trigger, we're only looking at a Mem Knight on Austin's side anyway.
Path to Exile picked up by Hoogland.
I'm thinking Jeff might just be waiting. He's either waiting for his window to have a critical mass to just have lethal in one turn, or to actually combo. It looks like he's starting to get aggressive here.
Yeah, Path to Exile will take care of the Ornithopter, and Jeff will swing in for 2. Remember that Jeff actually can still use the Chandra ability through Stony Silence, despite the fact that the Thopters are artifacts. The ability is on Chandra.
Right. Pia and Kieran is just a regular old creature. Doesn't care about artifacts being shut down.
I suppose I had the wrong Nalaar there. Not Chandra, but Pia and Kieran.
Right. This is a family game.
The Blinkmoth Nexus will trade with one of the Thopters. Another Galvanic Blast picked up for Holcomb.
Not clear that there's any especially good targets for the Galvanic Blast. The Thopter is a creature that's hitting you in the air, so maybe getting that one out of the way. Jeff will just sacrifice it and do 2 damage to you in response. Notably, the Spellskite is shut off by the Stony Silence, so you do get to pick what you want to kill.
He'll swing as champion. I like that play from Austin. Wants to check to make sure that Jeff sees the block. Jeff does. Blocks it with Spellskite. And Galvanic Blast will take care of Pia and Kieran Nalaar.
Yeah, getting that off of the board does take care of 4 burn on Jeff's side. It diminishes his ability to just reach and end the game outside of combat.
But it doesn't really progress Austin toward his own victory.
Right. There was some arguments to actually just Galvanic Blasting the Spellskite so you get in for 2. But you have to do that for 6 turns to actually win the game.
Sure. That Thopter is going to go ahead and swing from Jeff. Austin attempts to activate Inkmoth to block. Jeff at the ready with a Ghost Quarter. And then it's Phyrexian Revoker, and he'll pass.
Little redundant with Stony Silence in play, but...
Yeah, the Revoker named Cranial Plating, just in case Austin does have a way to get the Stony Silence off the board.
And Jeff's got a 7-turn clock in place.
Yeah, and that might be how he ends the game.
Plenty of draws that make him end the game faster, but not a lot for Austin to really stop Jeff from winning here.
And Jeff has picked up another copy. Austin's picked up another copy of Galvanic Blast. Starts to wonder, you know, that previous one, if Austin throws the Galvanic Blasts all at Jeff and just ignores other cards, I suppose he'll just get Spellskite activations out of the deal. That doesn't need, he has to get the Spellskite first.
Well, there is a Stony Silence in play, so Spellskite's a non-issue.
Oh, you're right.
But Jeff does have 3 artifacts. If the Pia and Kieran were still in play, Austin is just dead to him activating 3 times.
Okay. So he has to get rid of the 2/2. Inkmoth will swing. Looks like it'll be chump blocked by the Birds of Paradise.
Yeah, the mana from the birds not very important at this stage in the game.
Land from Jeff. He'll leave back the Thopter. He does have to be aware of getting poisoned out. Remember, he took 7 poison earlier in the game.
Right. With the platings locked up, there's really no way for Austin to do it without attacking 3 times.
Well, this is interesting. He's swinging Inkmoth Nexus and pumping it with Blinkmoth Nexus and working his way through Jeff's flyers. All
right, yeah, that is a combo that Stony Silence does not shut off. The Blinkmoth is just a land unless it's a creature, so.
You see Jeff actually having to chump away the Thopter. Austin's line may get here.
Yeah. Jeff really needs he hasn't drawn something for quite some time.
Yeah, and Torpor doing work. There is a Eternal Witness in Jeff's hand that cannot get back the Ghost Quarter right now to take care of the Nexus, and that's because of Torpor Orb. You see Kiki Jiki, the draw from Jeff. That card also shut off. Yeah. And it looks like we're going to game 3.
Yeah, Jeff lost interest in that game before the Torpor Orb was in play. I might have been premature in saying that it was a little too late. There are a lot of draws in Jeff's deck that break that board position wide open, but that's just not true with the Torpor Orb.
So Austin Holcomb finishes the Infect plan, gets 10 poison onto Jeff, and moves it back into the 3rd game. In really surprising fashion. This was a game that looked to be locked up for Jeff.
Yeah, that is wild. And yeah, there's a reason that Austin still has Torpor Orb in his sideboard. He knows that decks like this are out there. He knows that decks like Abzan Company are out there. And he does have the potential to win long games like this, and Torpor Orb is going to be a factor.
Yeah, and you look at the cards that Jeff can use to deal with Torpor Orb. I mean, his artifact destruction are cards like Reclamation Sage. That's not going to work against that effect.
In fact, his only non-creature interaction in Stony Silence doesn't matter against Torpor Orb.
Yeah, so he's down to, I believe, one way to get rid of the Torpor Orb.
Right, we have the Miser's Kasali Pride Mage.
That one's going to sacrifice to get rid of it as opposed to entering the battlefield. But that definitely could come up again game 3. Then again, I mean, look, Austin won that through a Stony Silence, don't forget.
Right. Just did it by attacking for 1 a whole lot. Did he ever attack for more than 1 outside of activating Blinkmoth Nexus late in the game?
With the Inkmoths, no. It was just he had just 2 of them going up to 6, 1 of them up to 7 with the Restoration Angel, and then he started pumping it with the Blinkmoths.
Just a whole bunch of chip shots.
Those colorless lands can work together to pull that off, and Austin showing just how.
Absolutely.
So Jeff Hoogland, Austin Holcomb will go back to game 3. And that's a chink in the armor here for the Kiki card deck. It's the first game we've seen it lose on camera.
Yeah.
And it didn't look like it was going to happen.
Right. You know, notably, Jeff did brick on. I don't think he had a Court of Calling that entire game, or did he have 1?
I don't believe he ever had a Court of Calling.
Yeah, and that
he had 1 for the Restoration
right.
Angel. Yeah.
Yes, it was very good the time that he did draw it, but he had a lot of draw steps of finding a second, and it never showed up.
All right, Jeff starts on Stomping Ground. We'll see how good Austin's start is. It's a turn 1 Springleaf Drum, Mox Opal, but then it ends there.
Notably, the big impact cards usually happen on turn 2 for Affinity, so his turn 2 is going to be huge here.
Jeff will shock for Wall of Roots. He'll go to 18. Now we'll see what those payoff cards are for Holcomb. Could have up to 4 mana this turn. See, it's going to be Glimmer Void, Arcbound Ravager. He'll just pass the turn. He had 2 mana up. Could have made a Cranial Plating, but opted not to.
Yeah, what he also has is he has access to a Galvanic Blast that he's choosing to leave up here. I believe that part of the reasoning is next turn he'll be able to cast Plating, equip, and then still have that Galvanic Blast mana potentially.
Okay. On tap, we go to Jeff. He will use Lightning Helix on the Arcbound Ravager.
This is where you potentially get a little bit punished.
Well, we can look back at Austin's land here. If it's a creature land, he could put the 1/1 counters on it.
Right. Yeah, the Opal or the Springleaf Drum would have been able to activate it. Ornithopter a little late to the party.
Yeah, not going to be there in time to get Rockbound Ravager's 1/1 counters. Yeah, so actually that last turn, Austin could have used Mox Opal to activate this Nexus and put some counters on it.
Yeah, it was just a Blinkmoth Nexus hanging out there. So either Springleaf Drum or Opal could have made mana, activated that, and the Ravagers could have put his counter on that.
But he does have a good turn here. He will make Cranial Plating, equip it to Blinkmoth Nexus, and swing.
That's a 3-turn clock.
That's a 3-turn clock. That's 7 damage. Jeff down to 11.
Also, that Galvanic Blast still in hand.
Right, so another swing of 7 plus a Galvanic Blast is going to be lethal. So go back over to Jeff. He'll need an answer. See if he can find something like a Pion Kiron. We've seen that do great work against Affinity so far.
Absolutely.
Looks like it's going to be Voice of Resurgence. He'll pass the turn. He has the potential of 5 mana here.
I believe I've spotted. Yeah, I believe he does have the Court of Calling. So the question is what he wants to get.
Yeah, he can court up to 2. Does not have something like Kataki in his deck. Now we go back over to Austin. He's going to move the cranial plating over to Ornithopter. Looks like he also has a Whip Flare in hand. A card that can be good here. I don't know if he wants to play it into this board, though.
Right, it would just turn the Voice of Resurgence into a 2/2, have no impact on the Wall of Roots. Probably going to sit on that one for a minute.
But this swing could be lethal. And Ornithopter will take flight. It brings over the cranial plating. Jeff going to cord for 2.
Could be Lone Missionary, gain 4 life.
Could be Kasali Pride Mage. If he wants to try to blow it up next turn, he won't get to untap if he does it.
Okay, it's Reclamation Stage. Okay, yeah, right. The so let's see. So we had 2 mana, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, he got 2 mana off the Wall of Roots. He put a counter on it and tapped it.
Right, so it would have been 3 total from the creatures, and I believe Jeff only had 2 lands untapped. I thought that was a cord for 2.
Okay, played a land and a play tapped that turn.
Right, Jeff
So he
giving us
can't
the
get the
thumbs up.
Reclamation. Yeah.
Everything checks out. He did have enough lands.
So Reclamation Sage takes care of Ornithopter. It saves Jeff life points for a turn. He'll still need an answer next turn to more damage off those Blink Moths, though.
Right. It's sort of curious that we didn't see Austin activate a Blink Moth Nexus and go in for the attack on that turn. It wouldn't have mattered for a ton, and certainly...
Well, 1 damage can matter here, but
Right.
I see your point.
Yeah.
So now Jeff will start to race back. It's at least a Voice of Resurgence, and we'll see if Reclamation Sage wants to join. No, it's just the voice. That's 2 damage. Austin down to 18. I think he doesn't want to trade away that Reclamation Sage in case he gets a Restoration Angel.
Exactly. Trading for the Blink Moth is fine, but Restoration Angel to just get the value of the Enter the Battlefield ability is just going to be a higher ceiling.
5th land for Hoogland. 2 cards remaining in hand. We'll see if Austin tries to go for a kill here. Draw his Signal Pest. He has 2 Blink Moths in play and a Cranial Plating. Tons of mana.
Yeah, the Signal Pest is definitely much less good than a plating off the top here. It matters. He does have 3 flyers with the 2 creature lands total.
It's going to be an activate a Blink Moth. Activate another Blink Moth. Swing them both. Oh, so the Ornithopter was not blown up. The Cranial Plating is gone.
Right, yeah. Yep. So the Ornithopter connected for 0 damage, but it's still hanging around.
So here's a swing for 2. Austin is once again inching his way toward the finish line. We do see another Chord of Calling, though, in Jeff's hand. That one can go for 4 if he wants to get Restoration Angel.
It could go for 5 as well. I don't think that this is necessarily a key. It could be a Kiki-Jiki board if we just make a whole bunch of Reclamation Sages.
Looks like he's going to Ghost Quarter away one of the Blink Moths.
Basic Mountain for Austin means that the Whip Flare and the Galvanic Blast are more easy access. Doesn't have to leave up the Mox Opal or the Springleaf Drum. Or the Glimmer Void.
Here's Signal Pest for Holcomb. Connected for 1 there to put Jeff down to 10. And Whip Flare will be the cast by Holcomb.
Yeah, so basically the fact that Holcomb didn't see a Restoration Angel in combat makes him think that 1 is not floating around.
Sure. And this will get the Wall of Roots now, too, as it's gotten 3 counters on it.
Right.
See if Jeff responds. He'll go to 9 off the fetch. You're thinking Jeff Way may want a Restoration Angel before the creatures leave?
Yeah, that's my guess for this play here. Definitely not a Pia and Kieran Nalaar into this Whip Flare.
He'll court for 4. It will be Restoration Angel. We'll see if he wants a card, a Reclamation Sage trigger, save his Wall of Roots.
Yeah, I'd probably take the card. Blinking the Reclamation Sage to destroy, say, the Signal Pest is a close-ish second.
So he will get the Wall of Omens. He will get the Restoration Angel and a card off the wall. Elemental Token into play. It's now a 3/3 and Kiki Jiki in Jeff's hand. Tapped out by Austin, and that will be the match. Jeff Hoogland, Kiki Cord takes it in 3.
So I was going to say that Jeff is looking for Eternal Witness or Court of Calling because he wants to find Kiki Jiki.
Or he could draw it.
But some people just have it all. Just naturally draws Kiki.
And that's one of the strengths of Jeff's deck with so much redundancy. It's, you know, you said it's not just a Kiki Jiki that wins there. It's a Court of Calling. It's an Eternal Witness. There's a lot of ways to get there.
Most decks don't have 7 shots that they're one of.
Yeah, so for Jeff, 11-1, looking like he'll have his 3rd straight Modern top 8. He hasn't locked it in yet, but he will have 2 shots to do so coming up.
Absolutely, he's in great position from here.
And Frost and Holcomb, Affinity, one of the lone, you know, the lone honest deck, I suppose, in the room of Eldrazi.
Yeah, I suppose in desperate times you have to stretch your definition of what exactly honesty entails. I don't think that Robots is the hero that anybody wants.
The only other deck to top 8 Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch outside of Eldrazi decks.
Yep, made it to the top 4.